Let's get comfortable, guys. I want you to sit down and get comfortable with me. It's been a wild and crazy holiday season this year. This is the 2025 wrap-up of all of the Christmas projects that I have made here on the channel, gearing up for this holiday season. All of these projects are really quick to make. They're really fun builds, something that you can get the kids or grandkids into. You can give all these out as gifts, or you could even sell them to make a quick profit. This video is going to break down all of those projects into a really easy step-by-step format so that you can follow along and you can build these with me. And if you feel like you need to go back and re-watch some of the projects while you're building them, I won't hold that against you. So while you're wrapping your presents right now, or you're getting dinner together, maybe you're laying down for the evening and preparing for your holiday festivities, let me run through all 5 of these projects, and I'd love to kick it off with this one. Now, this is a 3-piece Christmas tree set. All 3 have their own build process, and they all have their own design, but they pair together nicely, and I'm sure anyone that you give it to would love to have it. Let's go dive into the project now. Ho, 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 ho! Hey guys, didn't realize you were here already. Today I'd like to show you how to make a serious profit on some Christmas projects, things that you can sell, get yourself some money in the bank for those Christmas presents you need to buy for your loved ones. Let's get to the shop and get working. Alright, so to start this project off, we're going to need a chunk of our cedar fence picket here that we're using. And we're going to mark this out at 22 inches. Let's head over to the miter saw to get this cut. Since we're going for speed on this, I'm going to go ahead and sand the face before we cut our individual pieces, and that way we can sand it all at once. We know that it's all smooth. Once we cut it out, there's just a little bit of light hand sanding to be able to finish these. So let's get the vacuum on. We've got 120 grit paper on our sander and get the face of this flattened out. Now what I did here was I sanded one side smooth, and the other side I left the blade marks from the milling process when they cut these up. That's going to give me one rustic side that I can work with, and the other flat side that you'll see for different steps coming up. Now let's go ahead and get these cut to length, and we'll mark out the shape of each of our trees. For these particular trees that I'm making, we're going to do one at 9-inch. Another one that's just 7 inches past that. And that's going to leave our last one at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches. Now we've got a tall, a medium, and a short that don't have exact step downs between the measurements, and this keeps the nice visual appearance of having abstract pieces together as a set. Now we're going to get the trees drawn on these so that we can go over and cut them out on the bandsaw. I drew each of these in somewhat of a different orient. One curves to the left, one curves to the right, and then one stays fairly straight. That's so when we put them together as a set of three, they've got some kind of a movement instead of all looking identical in different sizes. There's multiple ways that you can make this cut. I have a bandsaw, so I'm going to use this. But you could also use a jigsaw to get your curved cuts. You could use a multi-tool to get your curved cuts. You could use a scroll saw. And if you don't even have access to power, you could always just use a coping saw to cut these out. Now that we've got our smallest one cut, I'm going to speed through and wrap up these other two. So here we've got our small, our medium, and our large tree cut for our three-piece set. I want to sand these down. I don't want to get rid of any of these bandsaw marks on the side. This keeps the nice rustic handmade look. But I do want to break the edges on this. As you can see, this cedar really has a tendency to just kind of peel and flake. And by hitting those corners, that's going to ensure that these pieces last a long time for the customer. Alright, so we've hit all of our edges, and we need to figure out what we want the front and the back of each piece to be. I like to keep the pattern here where our outside pieces are curving in and our smallest center is straight. That keeps everything in a nice curved motion. And the way we're going to finish these is actually going to be 3 different applications. I'll show you each application now and how these really work together and complement each other. I'm going to give you guys a really quick tip here on painting these, and that's to use this cheap craft paint here. It's a little thick when it's in the bottle, so we're actually going to mix it with some water and thin it out. What that's going to do is make it a lot easier to spread our paint on the piece. It's going to soak into the wood grain some, and what we'll be finished with is almost a white stained wood. So we're going to mix this up. until we've got the consistency of a drip, but not so wet that it's like water running off. You can see here. For a paintbrush, I'm just going to take a piece of paper towel, tear off a little strip, and fold it up like this. Dip our paper towel into our white paint here, and I'm going to hit our medium tree with this white. Just kind of spread it all around, all over, get it down in the nooks and crannies. Try to evenly spread this out, and the cool thing that you'll see is it leaves our wood grain showing behind it, as opposed to just painting the piece solid where all of the paint is sitting on top. And I like to save these little cut off triangle pieces from my projects. That gives us a raised surface so that we can let our paint dry on both sides. We don't have to take turns painting one side, letting that dry, flipping it, and then doing the other side. Just go ahead and paint both of those at the same time, let them dry at the same time together. So again, we can go on kind of thick, work that in, and just kind of spread it out evenly throughout our piece. We'll use some of this excess to go ahead and start hitting our edges. And this goes to show you really don't need a lot of expensive things. You really don't even need to buy paintbrushes to do some of these projects. Make sure everything's nice and even. Make sure you're not leaving big globs of paint anywhere. And that's about the finish that we're going for right there. You can still see the wood grain through it, but compared to a natural piece, you can see how much lighter that gets. Set that on our blocks to the side to dry, and we'll work on our next one. For this one, we're going to be doing a green, and then I'm going to come through with a solid white and hit all of our upward facing branches, so that way it looks like snowfall that has just naturally fallen onto the tops of those tree branches. Now with our green tree, we're going to get this really cool effect where I'm going to use our green paint mixed with the water to get a green stain. And then we're going to come back with our opaque white that is unmixed, so that our snow is going to look nice and solid on the tops of the branches, but our tree, you're still going to see the wood grain behind it. Let's get our paintbrush together here. Get our blocks laid out so that we can set it down while we're working. And then we'll just start on one side, flip it and do the other side and the branches, so that way anywhere that we don't have white will be our nice green tint. You can see when we're rubbing this on, you can just kind of be liberal with it, let a lot of that green soak in, and spread around any excess so you don't have it pulled up, leaving a solid green on top. There you have it with our green. We kept our wood grain pattern. We went ahead and hit all the sides. We're going to leave this up on our blocks for it to now dry. Let's go ahead and get the clear on our biggest piece, this one here, because we're going to need that clear to dry and set up before we actually do our final touches to this one. Does anybody else hate the lids that they put on these cans these days? I remember when every 4-year-old could get their hands on a spray paint can, pop that lid off, and do a nice little graffiti piece on their parents' garage floor. Seems like these days they don't even want the adults playing with it. So what I've got here is a Minwax polyclear. It's water-based and it's going to dry fairly quick, so we can really batch these pieces out and just keep the assembly line moving. And you can see I'm putting this on kind of thick. I only want to have to put on one coat of this. It goes on a little bit milky, but when it dries, it's perfectly clear. Okay, now that we've got the clear on our natural piece dry, we can move that out of the way. We're gonna bring, woo, big mess. We're gonna bring our white piece into center here, and we want to choose which side is our flat side. Remember, we flattened one side and we left the back side with the saw marks and everything. That was so we can make the front of our natural one kind of rustic with the saw marks on it, and then we want the front of this one to be flat. This is our next step. We're going to come to the flat side and we're going to take Mod Podge, which you can pick up at any store. Open this stuff up here. And we're just going to brush this on kind of liberally here. Make sure everything is completely coated. Make sure you get all the way to the edges of your branches on here. Got a little brush bristle. I'm using these natural bristle brushes just because they're cheap. So we're going to brush that on right like that. Make sure everything's coated. Make sure you really get to the tips of these little corners here. That's going to come into play. And we're going to let this sit and let this dry now. And while this is drying, we'll go ahead and get our white for our snow on our green tree. That'll be a second one finished up. So we're going to get our white paint. Just get a little scrap piece of paper towel. And let's get our white paint on here to use. And what we want to do first is determine which side is our front. I really like the grain pattern that you can see here. You've got the heavy light grains in this side, so we're going to make this our front. And what I'm going to do is on this top section here, we're just going to completely coat. And I'm not going down underneath. You can see I left the green underneath. That's because if snow was naturally falling, you have to think of where it would hit. It would hit the top and it wouldn't necessarily blow up underneath. So we're going to come down about halfway through and we're going to get the white on these below here. Okay? Halfway through that one. And then we'll come down about halfway through this one and do the same thing. And if you're really batching these out, you can use a brush. I'm not opposed to using a brush. I just don't feel like dirtying up a brush when I can just pitch this little scrap piece of paper towel here and show that you guys don't really have to spend much of anything to make stuff like this. There we go. We've got the corners of all these hit. I'm going to go ahead and brighten up with another layer on this top one. As you can see, the bottoms are kind of coating a little bit thicker than the top. But we still, where there's green showing through, just let that show right on through. There we go, right like that. Now, we're going to come to the front. We don't need to worry so much as the back, as these are meant to be a front displayed piece. But we're going to come to the front and just kind of dab on, you know, where you think that snow would naturally be laying. So I'm going to say right on down through here like this on this top edge. Kind of get some streaking in there a little bit. It's okay to leave it a little thick, it'll still dry perfectly fine. We'll get our next one right where the snow starts is where we're going to start our streak here. Kind of brush on down through there. And then the bottom right where it's at, right there, we'll brush on down through there as well. Right like that. And you can see what we're left with is just kind of the little peaks there of our branches covered in snow. Let's come over and hit the other side here. We'll do the same exact pattern that we have. Just kind of brush it in there. Leave your streaks. Remember, we don't need everything to look perfect. Right like that. Come and hit the ones below. I'm really digging the look of that. I like that, so we're gonna set that to the side to let that dry. We'll put it back on our little triangles that we had set up here. So now we've got our green done, we've got our clear done. We're waiting for our Mod Podge to finish drying on here. I'm gonna let this sit for about 15 minutes, maybe 20, kind of let this Mod Podge set up here, get rid of some of our trash, and then we'll come back and we'll finish these up completely. All right, this is where the magic finally happens. So we've got a piece of paper. This is actually scrapbook paper. It's a little thicker than, you know, wrapping paper, but wrapping paper would also work for this job. What we're really looking for is just a Christmas pattern, something that's going to complement, you know, all of our colors that are associated with this. And we're going to take our white tree that we put our Mod Podge on, with the Mod Podge facing up. This is our front. We're going to take this piece that we cut out for this one here. We're going to place it on the top, and then just a piece of parchment paper to keep our iron from burning our paper. Lay our parchment paper over the top like that. I've got this turned on medium. It's not super hot, so that way, you know, hopefully we don't have to worry about burning our paper. But this is going to melt that Mod Podge just a little bit so it becomes adhesive, and it's going to be like a sticker back on this piece of paper. So just press it nice and evenly. Don't really sit anywhere for too awful long. We're just going to kind of work it around our piece here. And then I'll come through and check and see what our adhesion looks like. Looks like we're nice and stuck all through here. This corner could use just a little bit of love. We're stuck all through here. These corners here need hit again, and the very top. So we need to hit all of our little corners again. So what we can do is come back in and just let it rest over right where we know these corners are. Come over and hit these corners on this side again. And I'm just kind of rolling the iron over the corners a little bit, just to get them to grab a tiny little smidge on there. Let's check it again. There we go. Now our corners are nice and stuck. Everything feels great. So we'll let this cool for just a minute, but you can see this adhered our paper to our piece of wood, right? Let's get something that we can cut this out on and not ruin our excellent tablecloth that we have on here for Christmas projects. Got a little chunk of plywood that'll work nicely as a back for our cutting. But what I'm going to pull out now is a specialty tool. It's called a razor blade. Now, most men carry one of these knives in their back pocket, but if you don't, I'm going to give you a great tip. When you go to your Christmas festivities, make sure that you're the guy that has a knife in your pocket so that you can assert dominance over the other dads as the kids are trying to open up their presents. So we're going to come in here and we're just going to trim our paper right along the edge of our wood. Try to be as clean as you possibly can. And there you have it. You can see the edges are just a little rough. So what I'm going to do is come back with this super light sanding sponge and just hit just the edges. Make sure you don't get up onto the paper. But we're going to hit just the edges of the paper here, nice and neat, nice and light. That'll take any of those little fuzzies off of our corner from our super sharp utility knife that we use to cut it out. I believe there's a name to this process, something like laminating, possibly. I'm no laminator myself, so we're just going to pretend like we know what we're doing, right? There we go. Now all of our edges are nice and sharp. So now we've got our middle tree here. We're going to take that and set that off to the side. Now that our white paint is dried and our green is completely dried, we can come through with our water-based polyacrylic spray, fight with the child-proof cap on it again, give it a little shake, and then we're just going to put a quick little sealer coat on this. Now the finish we've got here is clear satin, and what that's going to do is One, it's going to provide us with some protection to make sure this lasts. Two, it's going to ensure that if they ever get dust or anything on these, as they're, putting them away and getting them back out throughout the years, all of that's going to be easily cleanable. But it's also going to add some depth. Since we use this water-based stain that we just created, this is going to really protect that and bring out the richness and the wood grain that we still have showing. So let's let this dry up and we'll get on to finishing our tallest piece, and then our set will be complete. For the decoration for our third tree, I would like to incorporate this flannel fabric. This stuff's really neat looking. It's a wire lined fabric. It's a ribbon, right? But one of the cool things about this wire lining is you can actually grab a hold of this wire and pull it out of that side. This is to help with forming if you're making things like bows. In this application, since we're going to be cutting it back around the edges of our tree, I don't necessarily want this wire in there. It's going to make it really difficult for me to get my knife in there and cut. So we're going to pull that out, and what I'm going to do is lay this flat on the table here, and I'm going to come in with this upholstery adhesive, give it a good spray. Make sure it's good and coated. We want everything to really stick. I can get this edge that's trying to curl up on me. There we go. And I found with this spray, if you let it set for just a few seconds and let it tack up, it really helps when you're applying. There we are, starting to tack up now. I'm going to take this and I'm going to pull it as flat as I can, try and get directly center down the middle of our tree here. And I'm going to press this down nice and flat. Make sure we start at one end and work our way down to the other end so we don't get any awful wrinkles down the center of it. Really press that into your corners. Get down both edges. If it's going to peel, around these edges and around our cut corners are where it's going to start peeling from. So let's make sure that those are nice and stuck. Right like that. And then we're going to let this sit and dry as well for another 20 minutes. And now that our fabric has dried on here, our adhesive, I went and got an X-Acto knife to make this stage just a little bit easier on myself. So we're just going to cut this out the same way that we cut our paper out, flip it upside down, and then just trace your piece. So there you have it. Now we have 3 separate pieces that come together as a 3-piece set. This really adds value to our project when you go to sell these because people love getting things in a set or a bundle. It feels like they're getting more bang for their buck. That one was a fun little build. That was actually the first time that I had ever done that Mod Podge trick. I found that one here on YouTube. I wish I could remember the channel so I could give them a shout out. But guys, that's what this channel is all about. I love being able to learn things and then show you what I've learned. This comes from years of experience and messing things up myself so that you don't have to. But I love being able to create for a living. If you'd love to help me follow my dream and keep supplying you guys with this endless content of woodworking, of making, of creating, please just do me a huge favor. Go to the channel and subscribe. Remember to hit the little bell and switch it to all so that you'll get a notification anytime I put a new video up. I know when I look in my analytics, I see that a lot of you guys aren't subscribed, and I hate knowing that some of you are missing the content that I'm putting out. Not only do I make content about making all of these cool projects, but I also try to show you the business side along with it so that you can master doing what I do for yourself, and you can get out of your own 9-to-5 situation and start getting into the business of creating. But enough of me begging you to click a button. Let's dive right into the next build in this series. This one is a 3 snowman leaner that you can really customize and you can make it your own, whether it be for the family that you're making it for, or if you're pitching this to customers, you can ask them, you know, what are your kids or grandkids into? What are their favorite colors? Do they like metallics? Do they like pastels? You can really lean into the design aspect of this project. There's a lot of possibilities with this one and a lot of different opportunities. I'm gonna go refill my coffee. Let's go ahead and watch this next build. I know it's almost Christmas. I'm trying to get as many of these out as I can here. Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be building this cool snowman set. Something that you can use to decorate your own home. You can give it to someone else as a Christmas gift, or you can sell these for a serious return on your investment. Let's head into the shop and I'll show you how I built these. So for this project, we're only going to need 1 cedar fence picket here. I'm going to go ahead and sand down both of the faces. That way when we go to cut it and everything later, that part's done and out of the way. It's a lot quicker to do it while it's all one piece here. So let's get the sanding knocked out. So with our board sanded, I hit it fairly quickly with a 120 grit disc, and you can see I left all of the factory saw marks from the mill in here. That's to keep that nice rustic appearance to your Christmas decor. I usually use this style for pretty much anything involving Christmas. Now let's get over to the miter station and we'll get our lengths cut for all of our pieces. By miter station, I really mean just this collection of tools and scrap wood that I know everybody has in their shop. We're gonna start off by cutting the end off our lumber. That way we know that our starting edge is gonna be a perfect 90 degrees. Now it's super simple. We're gonna do our first cut at 14 inches. Our second cut at 16 inches. Our third cut at 18 inches. And then our last cut, again, at 14 inches. Now we switch our saw to 45 degrees, and just like the factory ears here, we're gonna cut 45s on our 16 and our 18-inch length. Right like that. Super simple. Now that we've got all our lengths cut, let's get our table saw set to 2 inches. And when you're setting the fence on your table saw, make sure your measurement is to the inside of this closest tooth. That way you know that after you lose the kerf of your blade in the cut, what you're left with is the exact rip that you're needing on your board. Go ahead and cut 2 lengths at our 2-inch width. Now we've got all sanded our 14-inch, 16-inch, 18-inch, and 2 backer pieces cut. We'll set our backer pieces to the side. Let's get these painted. I'm going to show you how to do all this in one quick step so we're not waiting around for multiple drying times. Go ahead and grab whatever cheap white paint you can find. A huge tip if you go to a big box store is to look in their mist tint section, and you'll often find a white that somebody had mixed and it just wasn't exactly what they wanted. You can pick that up really cheap. That's what I did with this can here. This has been sitting for a while, so we're just gonna give it a good shake here. Right like that. And in case you were wondering, the sounds while you're shaking your can of paint are necessary. It helps with the blending of the pigment and the oils in the paint. Let's come over with our paint tray here. We'll pour in some paint. It doesn't take a whole lot. Get a little bit in there, clean up our mess. I'm gonna get a couple scrap pieces just to lift this up off of our super nice tablecloth that we got here for all of our Christmas decorations we're building. If you guys like this kind of content, I've got a bunch of other Christmas builds on my channel as well that you can go check out. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. I'm really pushing to get monetized before Christmas comes around. That way I can continue to just keep putting out as much content as I possibly can and getting you guys all of these really cool projects for your home and for customers. So with our white paint now, we're gonna go ahead and hit the backs of these. Apparently felt like painting my hand as well. We're only gonna do 1 coat of paint, and I'll show you why towards the end of the video. With our paint applied and wet, we're actually gonna push these together, make sure all of the bottoms are lined up. With our paint applied and still wet, we're gonna push these together, make sure all of the bottoms are aligned, and then we're gonna take our 2 backer pieces, set them right on the backs of these, right like that, and we're gonna countersink a few screw holes to attach all these together. Now I'm just using little 1-inch panhead screws to attach these. You don't need anything crazy or anything fancy. Now with our backer boards attached, we can flip this piece over, and you can see why we can do all this in one quick, easy step. Let's go ahead and get our 1 coat of paint on the front. There's our 1 coat applied. We're gonna let this sit and dry for about 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the finishing touches. We've got our paint dry now. Let's finish up the painting process by distressing this white. Remember, we want to keep that nice, warm, rustic look to our Christmas decor. So by roughing this up and making it look a little aged, we're sticking with that central theme. That's gonna leave us with our little snowman leaner distressed here. Let's get the faces painted, get the accessories put on, and get this piece finished up. We've got everything cut and assembled now. We've got our 1 coat of white paint applied, that's dry. Sanded it down to rough everything up and get that rustic look going. Now it's time to paint the faces on so that we can figure out where to align our accessories. I'm going to use the Sharpie oil-based paint marker. I highly recommend these. I really recommend only the Sharpie brand. I've used a few other brands in the past and they come out watery and milky and you have to put multiple layers of paint on. These Sharpies always seem to work and they always seem to last a really long time. As with everything else that I use on my videos, I'm going to provide a link below. It's an Amazon affiliate link. By clicking that and purchasing what you need for these projects through that link, it gives me a small percentage of what they charge, and it really helps the channel out and helps us grow here on YouTube. When you first start using these markers, you'll need to shake them. You can hear there's a marble inside that mixes up the paint. There's also a felt tip that depresses, and that allows the ink to absorb into that felt tip. So you're gonna want a little test piece, and you're just gonna sit and hold this felt tip. We just wanna get that tip completely saturated with our black paint. Do a few little test lines here on our test piece. Those look great. Set that to the side. I've already pre-drawn some eyes on here. I looked up some designs and found a few different ones that I like. Don't do the same face on all three. Make all three of them different, but make all three of them complement each other. And you can see I'm just using the marker to fill in all of our space here. As you use these, every now and then you might have to go through and shake them again, depress the tip on your test piece, and get the ink flowing. There's the eye sets that I used for each one of these. Let's get the mouths drawn now. There's our faces complete. We're gonna paint on the noses, our orange carrot noses here. So we'll just get some of our orange paint. And I'm just gonna use the tip of my brush. You can see the brush that I've got is pretty wide, but we can just use the tip of it here and get our noses in place. There we go. There's the faces complete with the carrot noses. They're looking lovely. Now we need to come up with some kind of accessories because the accessories are really gonna be what make our pieces stand out and make people desire ours over other booths or other sellers. Now we're wrapping up into the final section of our project here. This is where the magic really happens. We need to do 3 separate accessories for these 3 snowmen so that they look like a set, but each one stands out from each other. Now I found this black and red scarf the other day, and I'm just gonna cut some sections out of it. We'll get rid of the end here since we're not using this end anymore. And what I'm gonna do, since this can't wrap completely around and tie it in the front, is I'm actually gonna make 2 sections. I'm gonna glue those on there and then we'll tie it like a scarf. But you can see what I've got here is a little wider than what I actually need. Let's shape that up into a more manageable piece. Something like that, and then we've got plenty to spare for when we make other sets of these. So we just cut this in half. With our hot glue, we're gonna go ahead and give Mom a scarf here. So let's put a nice little dab here, and another nice little dab on the opposite side. Attach one side here, and attach the other going the opposite way on the other side. And then we're just gonna tie these just like you would a normal scarf. Just a quick little single knot, right like that. And Dad is gonna get this cool little ribbon bow tie that we made here out of one of our ribbon sets. To attach that, we're just gonna put another little dab of hot glue there, attach his bow tie, and then now I'm thinking some buttons, because every snowman has buttons down his shirt, right? Let's give Junior here these cool little snowflakes. I'm thinking Dad can get the green. And then we'll give Mom the red. Make sure to clean off any of your little hot glue strings so these look nice and neat. And there you have it. It doesn't get much easier than that, right? We've got our awesome little 3-tiered snowman leaner. People can lean this up against their kitchen countertop and lean it against the backsplash. They could set it on the dining table, leaning back against the wall. You could set it up against your TV stand. The possibilities are really endless. Much better. So that's probably the most creative project in this series, but it's certainly not the most magical. Now, I've got a project at the end of this video that really hones into that Christmas magic. Kids love that project, but you're gonna have to watch till the end. In the next video, I'm gonna show you how to really spruce up the look of your tree. This one is really easy to build. It's very quick. It only requires a couple different tools. You can honestly make it in the morning before your guests arrive and have it ready by the time they get there. Or you could even take it with you and give it to somebody as a gift. They could put it under their tree as you guys are sitting down for dinner. Let's go ahead and dive on into the third project. I gotta finish decorating the tree. Aren't you tired of being this person at Christmas? Let's get in the shop so I can show you how to make a cool cedar tree collar like this one. Something that you can sell to your clients and something that you can put in your own home to really own this holiday season. To kick this project off, we're gonna need 4 of these cedar fence pickets, and I wanna go ahead and get them sanded down now before we get them cut to length. That way everything is just one long continuous piece to sand. We'll go ahead and sand both sides of this on the face. We don't need to worry about our sides because those are gonna get ripped off in the table saw later, but let's go ahead and sand this up so that we can cut our lengths on our miter saw. There you have it. We sanded down both faces, front and back. We left the saw marks. Don't go overboard with your sanding. You want to keep this as rustic as you can to keep that nice, warm, country kind of character that people are looking for with Christmas decor. Let's head over to the miter station after we get these other 3 sanded down, and we'll get these cut to our lengths. I love the smell of cedar in the shop. So first we're gonna start off by trimming our end of our board. That way we're starting our cuts with a good 90-degree edge. Then we're gonna come in and start cutting in 14-inch lengths. Go ahead and repeat that step for 3 of your fence pickets. On the 4th one, we're only gonna need 1 14-inch length. If you cut all these correctly, you should end up with 5 lengths out of each one of your boards, and it should also remove the dog ears on the end of your fence picket. We'll just pitch this piece. That's gonna leave us with 16 cuts now, all at 14 inches. Let's get these over to the table saw where we can rip them down to 2.5-inch widths. First, I want to set to where we're just cutting this far edge off, and then we can set at our 2-inch width, flip our boards around, and have that flat edge running down the fence. Now with our flat edge established, we're gonna come back in and we're gonna set our fence for a 2.5 inch rip. So we set just to where the inside of this closest tooth is at 2.5 inches. That way when we lose the kerf of our blade, we're gonna be left with our perfect 2.5 inch rip. Now that the milling process is complete, we've got our glitter applied. Let me show you where the magic happens with this project. First, we want to lay out all of our boards nice and neat together here. That kind of went sideways. With everything laid out, we want to flip each one of these and make sure that we have our best face facing down. This is actually going to be the inside of the project. The underside is what the client's going to see. And then the last step of aligning these is making sure that the tops and bottoms are all flush to each other so that we have a nice even structure all the way across. With all of our boards laid out, let's double check our length. We're sitting right at 81 inches. If you love small projects like this and you're really interested in growing your brand, growing your woodworking business, or even just getting started, please do me a huge favor and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me with bringing you guys as much content as possible. Let's get back to the build. Now I've got this fabric that I pre-cut to a 14-inch width, and our length is just shy of touching the edges on each end. What I'm gonna do is come through and lay this out evenly on our boards. Right like that. Let's grab our staple gun. It doesn't really matter which kind of stapler you have. Mine is pneumatic, but if you have a manual stapler, or even if you don't have any kind of tool like that, there's small staples that you can buy and you can drive those in with a hammer. Don't feel like you need the top of the line tools for every single project you go to make. Starting with beginner tools is perfectly fine. So I'm using a 3/8 inch crown staple in my pneumatic stapler here. Let's get the compressor turned on and get our fabric attached to our wood here. If you're interested in a wireless remote like this, I've got the compressor running in the other room behind me. You can see the hose comes out through the wall and is wound up and attached in here. That's so I don't have to deal with the noise of my shop compressor in the room that I'm working in. And a wireless transmitter like this works perfectly for turning it on and off and not having to go room to room. I'll provide a link to that down in the description if you'd like to pick one up. With our compressor now fully charged, I'm gonna get started on this. I'm gonna put a few staples in the end board to hold everything tight, and then we're actually gonna start working from this way down. That way we can pull the tension on our fabric and keep everything as tight as possible while we're putting it all together. So start by rolling back your top edge about 1/2 inch. And we're gonna put a staple right here in the very end. We'll follow that up with another staple right next to it. Let's do the same on this bottom side. Remember to keep everything pulled nice and tight. And then we're just gonna put a couple across the center here. We're just gonna pull our fabric while we're holding our edge of our wood here so that we know everything's nice and tight. Again, roll your edge over about 1/2 inch, and we're gonna go 2 staples in the end piece. Come down to the bottom, do the same thing. And a couple across the center. Now we can work our way down. We'll hit the entire top edge first, rolling that over 1/2 inch. We'll come across the bottom and roll that up 1/2 inch. And then we'll just put a few staples in each board across the center. That way we know that any of our tension on our fabric is gonna be nice and evenly distributed when we go to set this under the tree. We want this to be something that the family can hang on to for years. They can really cherish it. They can get it out every Christmas and make it a part of their family tradition. And I'd love to take credit for this technique. Unfortunately, I didn't come up with it. This is a technique used by furniture makers now for a long time. If you remember those cabinets from the 50s, 60s era that have the doors that you slide and it's got the individual slats of wood, they roll back into a track into the cabinet itself. This is how those doors work, how they put those doors together and what allows them their flexibility to roll along the track like that. We made it all the way to the end without reloading the stapler. Now we can just as easily turn our compressor off, put our tools away, and with that, we're finished. To show you how simply our project sets up, you're just gonna take it and form your circle right like that around your tree. Make sure everything's nice and neat, make sure it's nice and round, and there you have it. It doesn't get much simpler than that, guys. This is a really cool project that you can make. You can sell these online on Etsy or on Shopify. Take really great pictures to use with your marketing and go ahead and throw it on your local Facebook marketplace as well. These are really great sellers. A lot of people are looking for other options from the traditional tree skirt that they've grown up with and been used to. This provides a more modern look, a more rustic appeal to their Christmas tree. Let me show you how easily this breaks down for your customer to store them away in a tote with their other Christmas decorations. And then we're gonna run through some numbers so that we can figure out what our cost and what our profit margins are. So to break it down, you're just gonna lay it back out flat, and then you're gonna take your entire project and roll it up nice and neat, just like a sleeping bag. And did you know that a sleeping bag you're not actually supposed to roll up? I found that out on social media the other day. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do instead of rolling it up. If anybody knows the answer to that, leave it down in the comments below. But apparently there's an easier way to store it. Unlike this, look how tight, look how neat that stores away. You could put this in a tote with all of your ornaments, with your tree garland. You could put your fake tree in there as well, I guess, and just keep everything together in one container. Now that's not actually my Christmas tree that you saw at the end of that video, and funny enough, this isn't my Christmas tree either. That build took a lot of planning to get everything to come together just right, but if you follow all the steps and you listen to the measurements, you can probably knock it out yourself in about 15 to 20 minutes. It's something that families can really enjoy for years to come, and speaking of years to come, I'd really like all of you guys to just take a second to think about all of the loved ones that we have here surrounding us this year. I know we've lost a lot of friends and a lot of family along the way, right? But we still have a lot of them here with us today. And even if you don't have anyone, I've been there myself. I've worn those shoes. Just know that you have a safe place here. You have a friendly place to come and a warm, inviting community here on this YouTube channel. I also have a Discord server, and I'm going to leave a link that if you follow it from the description, it'll get you into our community space where you can hang out with other makers and builders just like myself. We give all sorts of tips. We talk about tools all the time. There's a lot of hangout channels in there to just hang out and enjoy a little bit of free time with others. But I'd really like all of you guys to use this holiday season as an excuse to reflect on all of those people that we've lost and take an extra few seconds to hug the ones that are still around. Another year went by and you never really realize in the moment that you're living in the last moment until that moment has already come to pass. Let's go ahead and take advantage of every minute of it this holiday season. And now that we've decorated underneath the tree, let's work on a project that can spruce up the tree itself. This is going to be another gift set that's also customizable. These Christmas tree decorations use the same kind of Mod Podge application that we used on our Christmas tree project earlier in the video. And with this one, you can really customize with the type of paper that you use. Really think about who you're giving this gift to. If you're selling these, ask your client, is there anything special that I can do for you? Maybe you could even write the year on the back of the ornaments, so that way when they reflect back in the years to come, they can say, oh, you remember that year when you used to watch Minions every single week? That was 2025. I know most families really love things that they can look back on and they can reflect of that year and that particular time. When your loved ones are young, you don't really think of them being older, but once they are older, you're going to want to be able to look back and cherish those little Christmas moments that you had before. Let's get into the next build and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. It's beginning to look a lot like somebody's watching me. Oh, hey guys. Come with me today so I can show you how to make a serious 400% profit on an easy little project here that everyone is definitely going to want in their own home. Alright, so to kick this project off, we need to figure out what kind of material we want to use for our decorations. I'm going to use this 1/4-inch plywood. It's all going to get painted, so you're not really even going to see the edges on this and know that it's plywood. It's just going to look like a piece of 1/4-inch stock. I went ahead and printed out just a handful of patterns that we can use for our different ornaments. I've got a candy cane. There's a couple different ornament patterns here, and then a Christmas tree, because everybody likes putting Christmas trees on their Christmas trees. What we're going to do is start off by maximizing how many stencils we can get on our board. For the sake of this video and the length of it, I'm just going to be doing one of each right now. So let's line up. Our side is already flat and the edge of this candy cane is flat. That's perfect. Let's line that up. Let's mark this out. Trace our stencil. There's our rough shape transferred onto our material here. When you're going to batch these out, if you're going to use these for sales, you can cut this first one out of your piece of 1/4 inch plywood and then use that piece as a template, and it's a lot easier to trace out than trying to trace off your piece of paper. Let's head over to the bandsaw and get this candy cane cut out. So there's the rough shape of our candy cane. You could see that I had a little spot where I kind of dug the blade in. I had to go back and fix that. I've got a corner here that's not perfectly round, but we can fix that with some sandpaper here. So we're just gonna follow our edge and finish shaping this up with our sanding block. And you can see that's starting to take a much more uniform shape there. Let me grab a smaller piece of sandpaper to get down into this tight cove. And as you can see, a lot of this work is really just about making do with what you've got. This would be a lot easier on something like a scroll saw, which I don't have. And it would be easier on the bandsaw too if I had a thinner blade, but unfortunately the only blade I have in there is the size that it came with. But we're making do. We're gonna go through and round all of these edges over real quick. Make sure you hit both sides on this. And there you have it. Our sanding is complete. Our candy cane is cut out. Let's move on to these other 3 shapes, get those cut out and shaped up, and then we'll move into the painting phase. There's our other 3 ornaments. We're gonna head to the bandsaw and get these cut out. Now that we've got our other 3 shapes cut, we can go ahead and get these sanded. So again, start with your edges and just work your way around. Hit the flat sides first. Make sure you get the shape exactly the way that you want it. And then work on rounding over your edges on both sides. When you're doing things like getting inside of these tight little curves, you do want to get the shape that you want, but don't be scared to leave just a little bit of that bandsaw marking. This really ensures the customer that this is handmade. It's not just cut out with a laser or a CNC, and it's not just batched out in a factory. We've got all 4 of our shapes cut here. We've got our Christmas tree, our ornament, our second ornament shape, and our candy cane. Let's work on how we're gonna finish these out. Now I'm gonna use this Minwax Polycleric. I got clear satin so we don't get too much of a gloss to these, keeping the nice, warm, natural tone of the wood. First you gotta fight with these stupid caps they put on these things these days. I know they say child-proof, but I'm 37 years old and I have trouble with that thing. We're only gonna coat the back side of our ornaments. The front side is gonna be finished with a different process that's gonna seal the wood anyways. So go ahead and spray 1 good coat on the back side of all your ornaments. And this coat on the back side is going to wrap around all your edges, ensuring that all of your edges are sealed. It's going to look kind of milky when you spray this water-based sealer on these, and that milkiness will go away as it dries. Let's let these sit for about 20 minutes and set up, and then we'll flip them over and start finishing the front. Now that our clear has had a chance to set up and get a little tacky, I'm going to take a bunch of these little triangle offcut pieces that I saved to the side, and I'm gonna stand all these pieces up off of our work surface so that we don't have to worry about anything sticking to our awesome tablecloth that we put out here for all of our Christmas decorations. Right like that, get rid of our plastic. And we're gonna move on to finishing the top side of these. Now, the way that we're gonna do this is we're gonna come in with some Mod Podge. We're gonna coat the whole top surface. You don't need to be sparing with this. You wanna make sure that there's enough on it so that when we go to attach our paper, it adheres nice and evenly throughout the entire piece. And when it dries, you don't end up with any bubbling in your paper because of the lack of adhesion underneath it. We're gonna take our brush, flip these over on the front side here, and we're just gonna coat nice and even all the way across. Make sure you hit your edges. This stuff is gonna dry clear, so anywhere that you have it showing that we're not covering, it's gonna look perfectly fine. Now that we've got our Mod Podge on our ornaments and it's had time to dry to the touch here, we're going to take these, set them to the side, get all our blocks picked up here, get our cutting sheet, and I came up with 4 scrapbook pages that I think would look really nice on the front of these ornaments. So let's go, I really like this one for our candy cane. So let's grab our candy cane and we're just gonna cut out a rough shape here. And now we're gonna take, with our Mod Podge side face up, we're gonna take our piece of paper here
set it right on top. Then we're going to get a piece of parchment paper and set it on top of that. This way we can use our iron to adhere our paper to our ornament, and we don't have to worry about the iron burning the paper. The parchment paper is going to take a majority of that heat, and it's going to evenly disperse it underneath. So take your hot iron, place it right on top. Make sure to keep it moving around. Don't let it sit in one spot for too long. And I like to kind of round it over the edges just a little bit to make sure you get over those rounded edges that we made. You're going to do this for about, I'd say 20 seconds or so. Let that Mod Podge really heat up and get gummy again, and grab a hold of the paper. You can check it, make sure that we're getting good adhesion everywhere, feel all the way around. And then we're just going to trace with our X-Acto knife, or you could use a utility blade. You could even use a pair of scissors and just hold them even with that curve on your side. Cut it all the way around. Just make sure you're getting right up against the wood here. We want it to be right on the edge of our ornament. Don't worry about being too awful precise, and I'll show you why here in just a second, how we're going to clean that up. But come through and cut all the way around. Right like that. Remove your paper. And what you're going to be left with is the paper adhered. You might have some little rough spots. I don't know if the camera will pick that up or not. So here we've got a scrap piece of wood. I'm going to set that down, and what that's going to do is it's going to give us a backer to our piece to help hold the back of that tight and let that drill bit go straight through without blowing and splintering out the hole on the back side there. So take our 3/16 drill bit,
I know. You're probably sitting here right now like, man, it'd be awesome if we could hear this guy while he was talking at the end of that video. Like I said, it's been a wild and crazy holiday season trying to get all of this content to you guys before the holiday season was over. This is one of my favorite times of year. I'm just getting started on YouTube. I'm only a couple months in at this point, so we're still working out all of the little kinks with the camera and the mic and all the lighting and everything that goes along with it. I cracked a joke in that video while I was tying the ribbon on the ornaments about me not being able to tie my shoes as a child. Now, all of these videos, if you go to the channel and actually watch the long-form version of each one separately, have bloopers at the end of them that I love to include as a way for me to just honor and pay homage to all of those great makers that came before me, like Bob Vila and This Old House. It really gives me a sense of nostalgia when I can go back and watch my own content and enjoy those little blooper reels at the end like I used to on TV. You don't get that kind of humor these days. I remember watching Home Improvement and feeling that sense of magic at the end when you get that last final laugh in at the end of an episode. Kind of like the magic that I tried to incorporate in this next piece that we're going to dive into. This next one is a snowman advent calendar. It uses a sense of magic that kids really love to be able to count down the days until Christmas Day. Another really fun one that families can hang on to. They can put it up year after year and it can become a family tradition of theirs. This piece was a really fun one to design and build. A lot of creativity went into this one, and I'm sure you guys are really going to appreciate it. Let's get into the build here. What's going on, guys? I'm hanging out in the shop today so that I can show you this awesome little snowman wall hanging advent calendar that we created. You're going to see how the magic happens all the way towards the end, so make sure you don't miss a step. You're going to want to see this one. Let's get into the build. We're going to kick this project off with a 3/4 inch piece of plywood. This is cabinet grade plywood that I have left over from some cabinet builds that I've done in the past. I always save these little chunks so that we can use them for other projects down the road. Now, I need to come up with a shape to our snowman, and I'm just going to use some things laying around the shop to make sure I've got perfect circles. I've got these 2 paint cans here. I've got a gallon and I've got a quart. So let's start with the gallon can. We're just going to trace the bottom of it here. And that'll be the base to our snowman. We're going to take the top and just overlay it a little bit. And there we've got the basic shape for our snowman calendar here. And I'm thinking we add a hat on top. When you think of Frosty the Snowman, you think of his black top hat. Looks like this little chunk of 2x4 is going to be just the perfect size for Frosty's hat. Let's put it just a couple inches above his head and trace out our line for that. That looks just about perfect. I'm going to head over to the bandsaw and get this cut out, and I'll show you what we're going to do for the brim of the hat once we're finished with that. I'm using my Win 10-inch bandsaw for this project. If you don't have a bandsaw, you could also use a scroll saw, a jigsaw. There's multiple ways that you can cut out this shape. This is what I have, so this is what I'm going to use here. Helps if you plug it in. And there you have your basic shape. Now that we've got our basic shape, we can use this as a template as well for all of the other snowmen that we're going to make. I'd like to give our snowman a nice brim on our hat. And to keep a nice 3D kind of visual, I'm going to use this 1/4 inch plywood that I've got. I've got just a little scrap piece laying around here. If you've been on the fence, this is the fence that comes with that bandsaw. I'm going to leave a link down in the description below. This link is an Amazon affiliate link. It helps the channel out by giving us a small percentage of anything that you buy using that link. So please check it out if you're planning on picking one up this holiday season. Now that we have our pieces cut, let's do just a little bit of light sanding and then we're going to be ready to paint. There you can see we just lightly hit all of our edges, giving them a nice little soft round over. Now, I did sand the sides of our plywood here, but I don't want to go too extreme. I want to keep all of those bandsaw marks so that we're left with our warm rustic look that we're going for with all of our holiday decor. I've got this gallon of white barn fence paint. It really doesn't matter what kind of paint you use. This is for decor. It's nothing that's really going to see the elements of nature or anything like that. It doesn't need to be real durable. We're just going for looks. So give this whole can of paint a good shake. You can see I went ahead and painted the hat and the brim of the hat white. And while that's so, even though our hat is going to be a different color for contrast, you'll see how that comes into play towards the end of the video. I cheated and used a heat gun to save some time. I like to save these little triangle pieces here from other jobs that we've done where I just cut the corners off of things. I keep these around to keep me from having to buy those little pyramid-shaped paint blocks that you see everybody has. These are free and they were going to get pitched into the fire pit anyways, so now they're getting a second use and we can just hang on to those in a tote. Take some Mod Podge here. We're just going to use a paper towel so I don't have to waste a brush with it. Take the brim of your hat and just brush this on. It doesn't have to be real thick, you just want to make sure that you get all the way to your edges all the way around. Okay, now this next part is really cool, but the magic is definitely yet to come. You're going to want to stay tuned to the end of the video to see what really sets this project apart from all of the other little advent calendars that you've seen. There's going to be a really cool hidden feature. You're not going to want to miss it. But for the brim of our hat here, we've just cut out a little piece of scrapbook paper. We've got our Mod Podge on here that's completely dry now. We're just going to set our piece of scrapbook paper directly on top and then take a piece of parchment paper and lay it on top of that. This is going to help displace some of our heat so that we can get our paper to adhere to that Mod Podge, and it's going to keep the paper itself from actually burning. We're going to give this about 20 seconds. There we go, everything feels great. Now we need something to cut this out on. I like these nice little self-healing mats with an X-Acto knife. Come through and just cut your paper flush with your wood piece here. And then to clean up our edges and make sure that our paper's never gonna peel, we're gonna take our same sanding block here, come in at about a 30-degree angle and just hit all of your edges of your paper. Let's go work on our snowman. I'm gonna do the hardest part first. This is what's gonna actually give us our magic. And then we're gonna work on getting the accessories put on him, get the paint put on him, get everything wrapped up. If you don't have a drill press, you can just use a 1/2-inch Forstner bit and a hand drill. Me, being as amazing as I am, forgot to hit the record button on the camera.
You suck!
But you can imagine, I drew out my template here. I laid it on our snowman. This follows the same lines that we have coming up for our head and the body of our snowman, so that when we come through with our drill press, we're gonna punch this Forstner bit down, leaving about a 1/4 inch of material on the bottom side. That way, when you come in and put your magnets into your holes here, everything is invisible on the front. I made sure to hit the record button for this part. Now we've got our 1/2-inch neodymium magnets. We're gonna count and pull off 12 of these, one for each one of our holes. It's hard to believe sometimes I can still count that high. Let's take some of our Gorilla Glue and put it down in our hole. Right like that. And then we're gonna take our magnet again, make sure we keep it facing down the direction that we want, and drop it into the hole. Now it's been sitting for a while, the glue's set up. Let's flip it over and start working on the front here. What I'm gonna do is start roughing up a little bit of these edges. Remember, Christmas decor, you really want to lean into that rustic kind of look. Now let's get our numbers painted onto the stomach of our snowman. And we're gonna go 1 through 12. Remember, we've got our cheat sheet that matches the way that these are lined up on the back. So what we're gonna do is just flip that over. So I'll take my pencil now and just make a nice, teeny tiny little dot right in the middle of all of these circles. Let's get our green paint here. And we don't need very much, just a teeny tiny little dab. And then all I'm doing is just dabbing, just a teeny tiny little dab on there. There we go, there's our numbers. Let's go ahead and get our button glued up here with our magnet so that we can have that drying off to the side, and it should be set up and finished by the time we're ready to put it on. While we wait for our heat gun to glue up, we can go ahead and get our corncob pipe shaped up here. Right like that, we'll leave that to the side. Come back in with the brim for our hat, get some glue on it. And I like to go at just a little bit of an angle. It gives it some really fun character instead of everything just being perfectly flat, perfectly square. And then next we're gonna take our Sharpie oil-based paint marker. I really like these Sharpie oil-based markers a lot more than the other brands. I've used the other brands over the years, and I found a lot of those you really have to layer the paint up to get a nice opaque paint. And with the Sharpies, it's just you touch it once, it's finished, it's done, and you're moving on to the next thing. Look how adorable that little face is. Love it. Now we need to get the hole drilled for our corn cob. We're not going very deep, just enough to get a little bit of glue in there and get our corn cob snugged down into the hole. And then we can work on the burlap for the hat. And the way I'm going to attach this is with this upholstery adhesive. This stuff's really nice. It sprays on. You kind of let it set up for just a few seconds, 5 or 6 seconds, so it'll be a little tacky. And then you push it right onto whatever you're applying to. And now for the final act in our magic show, I want you to take some string. And there you have it. There's our little snowman. Now we can put a D-hook on the back of this so you can hang it on the wall, or you could put a little triangle base coming off of the back of it so you can stand it up. You can cut the bottom off flat and advertise it as a leaner. And then where the magic is in this project is you can't see any way that this attaches right. Our magnets are hidden behind. So as your calendar progresses, you just stick it on your next number. You let your string hang. That gives it a nice, awesome little character. I really love making little projects like these. So to help me out, guys, please go down and hit subscribe on the channel. Be sure to like the video, leave me a comment, say hey, let me know where you're from if you made it to the end of the video here. I just realized I forgot to put my Santa Claus hat back on when we wrapped up this project. Let's fix that. Much better. Well, that just about wraps up the video. That was the entire 2025 Christmas season project series. Those were a lot of words to put together there. Thank you so much for watching the entire series. It means the world to me as a small-time content creator that so many of you are pouring out your hearts and helping to support my small channel. The love that I have received here on YouTube so far is nothing short of a miracle. If you haven't yet, please do me a huge favor. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel so that I can continue to bring you guys as much great content as I possibly can. Leave a comment down below and tell my family Merry Christmas so that I know that you stayed to the end of the video. I hope that you got all your presents wrapped and that I've sparked a little bit of motivation for you to go out and get in the shop and create something for yourself. I'm going to go spend some time with my family for the holidays. Thank you guys so much again for showing up, and Merry Christmas. I almost forgot. If you guys would like to go back and watch any of these builds in their entirety and catch the bloopers that I said are at the end of each one of my videos, I'm going to put a playlist up here in the corner for you, along with a subscribe button so that you guys can watch as much as you possibly want. If you want to go back and really dive into the steps of creating any of these projects, they're all listed within this playlist. Again, thank you guys. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. I hope everything that you want comes to you in this next year. Have a happy new year. I'll see you guys on the next one.